Hey guys, so remember I'm gone today, so I'm making these videos at my house, so you may hear my kid screaming or having a good time behind me. So if you remember last week, we looked at a mentor opinion essay that answered the question, which animal is easier to picture in your mind? Was it the dog in Here Boy or Misty and Waiting for Stormy? So over these next 2 weeks, this week and next week before Christmas break, we're going to write our own opinion essays, which we answer a different prompt, which we can see right here that we're going to look at. But first, let's look over what a good opinion essay needs to have. So remember, an opinion essay, we need to introduce the topic, we need to tell our opinion, we need to support our opinions with reasons and details from the reading, and we need to include a concluding statement or section. We also need to read it to find facts and details where we gather information and we put it into its correct categories. And then we include reasons for our opinion, which means we include that opinion statement and we include details that support our opinions. So now let's look at our prompt. So this is what we're going to be writing on. So in your readings, you have encountered two different narrative points of view, first person and third person. Which style do you think is a more effective way of telling a story? State your opinion in an essay and provide reasons that are supported by details from two of the following readings. Here Boy, Waiting for Stormy, A Dog's Life, and Quiet. So notice it says we have to pick a reason. Is it better to tell a story in first person or third person, and why? And then we need to give examples from two of these four reads. We don't have to use all four, just two of them. So remember that when we answer this prompt, we recall previous lessons that we looked at. So here, boy, we looked at what a narrative was like in third or first person when Opal's telling the story, and in Stormy, we found out what a narrative is like when we're looking at what? When we're looking at third person. Remember, we had those two characters, Paul and his sibling, and they were daydreaming in class. And if it was first person, we couldn't flip back and forth between those classrooms to see it. So now, just a reminder, in a first-person point of view, the story is narrated by a character describing the events from his or her perspective. Third-person point of view differs from first-person in that the story is narrated by someone outside the events. I will need to identify the points of view in the readings and consider which one is more effective for telling a story. Which ones do I like better to convey that story message? Now remember, A Dog's Life, that was the one that we read that was very short. It was one page, and it was about the dog who was scrounging around having that rough life. Quiet's going to be what we're working on this week. So as we're looking at Quiet this week, I want you to think, is this the best way to tell a story? Or would it have been better if we had switched that point of view? Because you guys are going to have to come up with details like we did with Here Boy and like we did with Stormy and Misty, where we have to say why that is the best way to tell it. So just so you can look back and kind of get yourself refreshed which one you like better, here we have a sentence from Winn-Dixie that was done in first person point of view. All the Winn-Dixie employees turned around and looked at me, and I knew I had done something big. Now what would that be like if we switched it, and instead of being first person with this word I, if we had changed it so it was third person? Well, we could just change it simply like this, and she knew she had done something big. So that's one way. They turned and looked at her. But we can also add a little bit more to it. We could, instead of just saying they turned around and looked at her, since we are now in third person, we kind of might have the option to know what the employees were thinking. So we could say all the Winn-Dixie employees, and we could now give their feelings or thoughts. So we could say flabbergasted at what has just occurred, turned around and looked at her. She knew she had done something big. So now we have also those thoughts of the Winn-Dixie employees. Now let's take it to the third person, but then switch it up. So this one we have third person point of view. The winds were sometimes strong enough to knock over both the dogs and the sleds. So now we need to change this so that's first person point of view. We could have it be the main human in the story, or we could have it change and be the dogs. So we could have the winds were sometimes strong enough to knock over both the other dogs and I and the sleds. we could completely change it and say, the strong wind was always ready to rip me from the ground along with these sleds. So we have these different ways, depending on who's telling the story, of how we can use their emotions and their thoughts to convey what we think is best. It's up to you to decide, though, which one you like better, because remember, you're going to be telling us what's the more effective way of telling a story.